Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are on a core mission, equipping high school educators like you with trauma-informed and social and emotional learning, or SEL, strategies to reach literally every single student. We're going to unpack the science and the everyday methods that can truly transform a struggling, chaotic classroom into a space of profound growth and connection.
But first, I want you to think about this question. What if that really frustrating, disruptive high school behavior you're seeing isn't intentional defiance at all? What if it's actually a profound biological trauma response? It's a massive reframe, right? Because once we start viewing our classrooms through this specific lens, honestly, everything changes.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, the hidden classroom crisis, followed by decoding the stress response. Then, the CBOCES 5 framework, creating the safe classroom, restorative de-escalation, and finally, educator self-care. Let's jump in.
Section 1. The hidden classroom crisis, unseen adversity. Let's look at the sheer scale of trauma in our schools.
64%. That number is just staggering. According to a landmark study by Kaiser Permanente and the CDC, 64% of participants experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, an ACE, before they even turned 18. To put that into perspective for you as an educator, it means trauma isn't some rare anomaly. It's sitting right there in every single classroom. So many of your students are walking through the doors carrying this unseen adversity that drastically impacts their ability to just sit down and learn.
Moving right along to Section 2. Decoding the stress response. Brains in survival mode. The biological reality here is that trauma physically alters the student's brain. When a traumatized student hits a trigger, maybe it's a loud noise, a sudden change in routine, or even a perceived rejection, they fall out of their window of tolerance and just plunge straight into survival mode. This usually shows up in two ways. There's hyperarousal, which is your classic fight or flight, where they become hyperactive or defiant. It's like an engine running way too hot. Then there's hyperarousal. That's a freeze response, where they totally withdraw, almost like the engine is just completely stalled out.
So what do those survival responses actually look like on a typical Tuesday in your classroom? Well, a student who is fighting back might break rules or aggressively refuse your help. A fleeing student might be super distracted by fear, just totally off task with haphazard thinking. And a freezing student, they might look totally zoned out or literally fall asleep right at their desk. We have to map out these trauma reactions so we can realize when a student is actually terrified rather than just assuming it's a standard discipline issue.
This brings us to a really powerful realization. Children impacted by trauma will do anything to survive. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Embracing this requires a total paradigm shift for us. We have to stop asking, "What is wrong with you?" and instead ask, "What happened to you?" That simple shift is the key to building the deep empathy you need to reach older, heavily guarded students. Okay, Section 3, the CBOCES 5 framework, building resilience. Let's talk solutions. The foundational solution here is social and emotional learning, or SEL. And let's be clear, this is not just an extra add-on or some educational trend. It is the active, evidence-based process of acquiring core competencies, like recognizing and managing emotions, showing empathy, and making responsible decisions. For high schoolers stepping into adulthood, explicitly teaching SEL is exactly how we build healthy identities and strong coping mechanisms. The widely used PACEL framework breaks this down into 5 concrete areas. We're talking about giving students step-by-step tools to shift from needing external control to mastering internal regulation. Self-awareness helps them actually identify what they're feeling. Self-management lets them regulate that intense fight-or-flight impulse. Social awareness and relationship skills build real empathy and healthy conflict resolution. And responsible decision-making helps guide them towards safe, ethical choices in the real world.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, creating the safe classroom. Environment matters.
You know, a trauma-sensitive classroom goes way beyond just physical safety. It absolutely must be psychologically safe. This means your environment needs to be highly predictable. Daily routines have to be consistent, and triggers need to be minimized wherever possible. More than anything, students need to know, without a doubt, that they will be respected, validated, and heard. A great way to implement this is through SAFE instruction. It's an acronym for the 4 critical elements of high-quality SEL teaching. S is for sequenced, meaning it follows coordinated logical steps. A is for active, giving students a chance to actually practice these new skills. F is focused, dedicating intentional time to the work. And E is explicit, directly targeting specific knowledge rather than just crossing our fingers and hoping students figure it out on their own.
Section 5. Restorative de-escalation, guiding the triggered student. Because let's be real, even in the best classrooms, triggers happen.
So what do you do when a student inevitably escalates? Well, there's a concrete roadmap called the acting out cycle. Step 1, you notice the early signs of distress, those red flags. Step 2, you connect with the student calmly. Step 3, you redirect behavior by offering reasonable choices. And Step 4, only after they are fully calm do you discuss what happened. Getting loud or aggressive here is the absolute worst thing you can do. It just throws fuel on their trauma response. Calm redirection is the entire game.
And the science backs this up completely. True restoration only happens when the prefrontal cortex is re-engaged. When kids are in survival mode, they literally cannot learn, reason, or reflect. Their thinking brain is essentially offline. You absolutely have to wait until they are neurobiologically calm before expecting any kind of real reflection or restoration.
Once that calm is achieved, we can lean into restorative discipline. Traditional punishment often just re-traumatizes vulnerable kids. Instead, we want to foster compassion over punishment. Try using student-generated agreements or adopting zero-indifference policies instead of harsh zero-tolerance rules. Conduct restorative conversations focused on accountability and repairing the relationship, and use stress management strategies to diffuse lingering tension.
Finally, Section 6, Educator Self-Care, Preventing Secondary Trauma. We really can't skip this part.
Here's a profound truth that we need to acknowledge. Educators providing a safe harbor day in and day out are at an incredibly high risk for secondary traumatic stress and compassion fatigue. Your own nervous system is literally absorbing the stress of your classroom. This isn't a weakness, okay? It is an occupational hazard of caring deeply about your students. To combat this, self-care has to be more than just a buzzword. It needs to be a systemic strategy. Engage in ongoing self-assessment. Schools themselves need to integrate proper crisis response systems and build community partnerships so teachers aren't carrying the entire burden alone. To be a safe harbor for your students, you fundamentally must protect your own peace. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've explored the hidden crisis of trauma, decoded the biological stress response, and unpacked the power of SEL. So how will your classroom routines change tomorrow to help your most vulnerable students feel safe enough to learn? The tools are right there in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you take these insights straight into your classrooms.